takes a second. It's the end times. Hey,
it does.
My wife is here, who's never been here before.
Your wife is here, who's never been here before.
Yeah, so we've talked about her. I've talked about her plenty of times, but this is Casey. To our loyal listeners and viewers that have never seen her before but have heard me talk about her. This is my wife. So she's joining us for our big final finale, final end times, the end of days show.
The end of days show. I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
And I'm joined by my girlfriend, Casey, who has the name of your wife and the birthday of your son. So I'm trying to replace you.
That is really creepy, actually. I didn't think of it like that, but that's really weird that she's basically a body snatcher type.
I've just absorbed them.
So we talked about this last week. This is going to be our last episode. We've got what I think is a perfect send off to our podcast. This is Unqualified Gamers, a video game podcast. For those of you that are just tuning in for the first time, if you are, welcome. I'm sorry, but this is the last episode you'll ever see of us as Unqualified Gamers. So I guess thanks for tuning in for the first time. Also, farewell.
There are lots of archived episodes on unqualifiedgamers.com and on WGMplus.com, and we're going to do a new podcast starting in January, which we'll talk about at the end of this episode. So there's plenty of chances for you to hear us still.
But if you legitimately are listening to us for the first time, first of all, that's kind of awesome. Second of all, thanks for tuning in and goodbye. This is going to be our last episode as Unqualified Gamers. We are rebranding. We talked about it last week. We'll talk about it a little more at the end of this episode. But per traditional Unqualified Gamers fashion, we're starting this podcast about 25 minutes late. And
that's true.
It's December now. And I thought, and especially having you talk to me about just briefly about How the Grinch Stole Christmas just before we recorded this, it's very important, I think, that we tell this little anecdote about why we're late today. So my family has a tradition that started, was it last year?
Yeah.
Was it last year, 2 years ago? I think it was last year that we started it. But we decided that we needed some sort of Christmas tradition because my wife grew up with a ton of traditions. I grew up with basically none. So, and I, as a person, am kind of a traditional person. I like traditions. We didn't have any in my family. But again, my wife did. So we decided we need to make a Christmas tradition. And our Christmas tradition, we decided, was going to be every weekend in the month of December, we had to watch National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation with another group of people or person. So when we were talking about tradition, we decided that tradition kind of needs to be a little annoying. It kind of needs to be something that you don't necessarily want to do 100% of the time, but you have to do it because it's tradition.
Like church.
And so
Catholic Church.
Like Catholic Church, exactly. And I grew up Catholic.
Much more Baileys, though.
Way more Baileys at Catholic Church. Way more.
You weren't doing Catholic Church right growing up. That's your problem.
Yeah. So we decided this last year that we were going to do this. And last year, it really felt like it was kind of a hit. There were about 4 weekends. We had to do it once a weekend. And what we decided was that we were going to have basically a different group of people over each time. Because for them, it would be the first time probably they watched it in the year. It is my favorite Christmas movie. It might be my wife's favorite Christmas movie. I'm not sure. I know you really like it. I don't know if it's your favorite.
I like it.
Yeah.
Bad Santa's her favorite.
Not willing to commit. It's her favorite. But it really gives us an excuse to see all of our friends over the holidays too, which is a really kind of fun thing to do. So because we're moving this year,
yeah.
December kind of snuck up on us, and I looked at my wife yesterday and I was like, holy crap, it's December this month. We have to do our Christmas tradition. And it's annoying because we're in the middle of moving, but if it's a tradition, you have to do it, right? That's the point of tradition. So we said, okay, we're going to do it. And so we got out the giant jug of Baileys that goes along with this tradition. And we watched it with...
jug of Baileys?
Well, it was like a handle, basically. And we killed about a half of it because that's what you do for this particular tradition. And we watched it with Casey's mom. And it was super fun. It was super fun. It was super funny. And it's going to be less funny next week. But we're going to watch it with a different... it's gonna be fewer funny next week, and we're gonna watch it with a different group of friends, and it's gonna be funny too. And it's just it's fun. Like, and so that's why we were late. We were late because we were celebrating a Martin family Christmas tradition.
So you're drunk on Bailey's right now?
I drink a lot of Baileys.
So
and
that,
decaf
Drunk on
coffee.
just Bailey's.
oh, you can get drunk on just
I
Bailey's.
don't think that's possible.
You can, but it's really hard.
It's like getting drunk on eggnog.
My stomach hurts a little bit, to be honest. I feel like you reach that threshold where it just becomes uncomfortable to drink any more Baileys,
Mhm.
and then you can't get
Then
any
you
more
have
drunk.
to bolster it with whiskey or something.
Yeah, and I didn't do that. So I'm not that intoxicated.
But you have all the calcium you need for the next 2 months.
Is there calcium in Baileys?
It's cream, right? Wouldn't there be
But
calcium?
you don't refrigerate it, so it can't be real cream. Otherwise, something's real wrong with Baileys.
Does calcium what makes milk need to be refrigerated?
Are there electrolytes in it? That's all I want to know.
Well, plants crave those.
What Brondo has.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. I'm glad you decided to join us this evening, despite being on Bailey's. We thought about drinking, but I had a late, ill-timed nap this evening, and if I were to drink alcohol, that would be a mistake. So I'm
that
drinking
spells destruction for your sleeping habits tonight.
caffeinated tea in an energy drink mug, energy tank mug for Mega Man. Yes, that's what that is.
I do support the National Lampoon's decision, though. I want to make clear before we move on. That's a great movie.
It's an awesome movie.
Yeah, it is.
Super funny.
It's an awesome movie.
You could have
And it has
been worse.
absolutely insane Randy Quaid in it, who is like legitimately insane, and you can kind of totally tell that. So
He's also like
yeah.
several of my relatives. So.
several of all of our relatives. Yeah. So, but yeah, so this is our video game podcast, as you can tell. You guys were watching Christmas movies too, and that's why you're late. And
I don't remember us being late, but if that's the way you want to pitch it, that's fine.
And this is our last episode. And we are going to talk about me no longer having any of my old video games anymore.
Your wife
that's-
looks despondent.
You
Well,
guys
she
need
looks-
sound effects or something like wah.
I think.
Wah, wah.
Well, I think she's a little sad, and I'm a little sad too. But I'm okay with it. So, do you want me to set it up, or do you want to set it up?
I'll set it up just because I need an excuse to talk. Basically, you decided a month ago that you didn't want stuff. You didn't want clutter. You're moving into a new house. You don't want to deal with it. And you're like, I have all these video games I haven't touched in several years. I don't need them. I'm not going to play them. I'm going to sell them. So you sold them all. You made like $50,000 and built a computer with it that I think actually is a super giant robot that can level Minnesota if it wants to. And thus you're now ruling the state. But that's what I know. But you decided to take all these physical things and sell them, and now they're gone, and they'll never come back. And there's nothing you can do to change that.
I mean, I guess I could buy them all again
That
down the
is
road.
one of the reasons that I was upset with the decision, because it's very possible that they could all come back in like 2 years.
Oh, that's one of the reasons.
You will
Okay.
rebuy them all again. So
Well,
I can understand that particular fear. I'll go back to the beginning. So, like you said, Cody, about a month ago, I was moving boxes, and I was moving all of the boxes.
I already said that. I already said
all of the
this.
boxes.
All these things you're saying, I literally just said.
Yep. And like you said, like you had said earlier, I'm going to reiterate it. I was like, I don't want these anymore. I don't want these anymore. So I put them all up on Amazon. And I
don't even know why I set it up. I don't know why I set it up. He's just going to say the same thing I just said.
I don't know why you did either. So I put them all up on Amazon, and I use their service where they sell them for you, which, by the way, is kind of a cool service, but also kind of not a cool service, because they shipped one of my games to somebody, and they shipped it in poor packaging, and it broke, which is actually more upsetting to me than the selling of the game itself. So, but anyway, that's a different point. So I had Amazon sell all my stuff. I did make a considerable amount of money on my video game collection. But I did it because when I was looking at the games, I was like, I literally haven't played these games in like 9 years.
I literally said that 3 minutes
Seriously,
ago. That's what happened.
It was 9 years. It was 9 years.
Next
like,
up
I don't
on
know.
this episode of Unqualified Gamers, I'm going to talk to you about why Jon sold his video games.
Can you set up the situation as to why I sold the video games? But I looked at the landscape of where video games are going, and I said, it is all going digital, right? And you know this because you are in the sphere of video games. Like, everything is going digital, including those old games. Like, if I wanted to, and we talked about this, if I wanted to, I could emulate all of those old games on a PC without having any of the hardware. And I could play them all again without ever owning those discs.
That's like not how you set it up and like pitched this to me though. You pitched it as I want to sell everything, including my PS4, of which we just bought, and I want to sell every single game, like every single thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which was crazy. First of all, we use your PS4 for a lot of different things. Second of all, I remember you had to have the Xbox Connect, which I thought was dumb from the very beginning.
It was pretty dumb.
He literally never used it once. So part of me just wanted to sit there in case, you know, Max wanted to use it someday. Same with the Wii. Like, he never really used that either.
You mean the Wii U?
The Wii U, yeah. And then I got him that little console thing is that the Wii U? That you sit upstairs and you can play on it?
That was the Wii U.
Yeah, I mean, like, I just have fond memories of saving my, like, hard-earned, like, when I was a waitress, I would save up to buy him, like, a game console.
But that wasn't the Wii U because you were already working at your other job.
I'm just saying, like, ever since I've known you, first of all, like, I feel like we've worked really hard to get to the point where you could, like, own exactly what you wanted. And then second of all, it's been such, like, a big part of your life. That's what you always spent your money on. It's what you always were, like, saving up for, and it just kind of made me sad. So even though you had been thinking about it for, like, a month, you just sprung it on me on, like, a Sunday afternoon after, like, breakfast.
No, it was during the week because we talked on GChat.
Okay, that's even worse. Like, you messaged me when I was in the middle of work. I thought you were having, like, a quarter-life crisis.
I mean,
I get
sure,
this I get a G chat that's like, I'm going to sell every single video game in all of my game consoles. Of which I said don't.
Yeah,
I
and
did it anyway.
This is why I wanted to have our guests on today because I was struck by this because about a week prior to this decision happening, I was talking to Casey about books, and she made a comment. Casey likes to read books, and which everybody should. And she made some comment like, I don't think that a person should ever like read every single book they own. I think it's nice just to have certain books, to have them like kind of as a just, I don't know, you say it in your words.
Well, no, that is not about use. You know, that every time you buy a book, then you read it, you should buy like 3 more. And then you always have options and it kind of keeps growing. And yeah, so other people can use it so that you have, you're surrounded by like things that are interesting and stimulating and just full of possibility. And the sentimental things. I mean, the books are a little bit different because, you know, they always work. You don't need like a cord to plug into them that no one makes anymore or anything like that. So it always makes sense to accumulate them and then you have them as a possibility. And you can share them with other people. And if you don't have a gift and you're going somewhere and it's a last minute thing and you need a gift, you could just take off one of those books that you haven't.
And there's like a longevity thing too. I mean,
and you have
when you keep your books, you can have a family and then eventually share them with people. I don't know. I'm with Casey on this.
Yeah, and there's just, and even if it's like, I know it's like a memory. Like so let's say it's like a game or something too. Like you played it, and then you know you have that like memory and that attachment, and once it leaves, that attachment is broken. I'm getting really mystical here.
Yeah, it's just,
but like once it goes, like it gets broken in the mail on the way. And like now it's trash. It was your childhood and now it's trash. Like that's sad.
Your childhood is trash, Jon.
What if I told you? What if I told you that?
Percentages.
What if I told you that the memories as I was going through the games, and Cody and I talked about this a little last week. We didn't talk about it on the air, but we talked about it a little. The memories of the games as I was going through them has absolutely nothing to do with the games themselves. Like, and I realized that as I was going through them. It all had to do with the memories I had surrounding those games and the people I was with when I played them. So like the games that were great single player games that I remember playing by myself, when I sold those games, I didn't have any problem selling them. I didn't feel attached to them at all as I was getting rid of them because they didn't there was not an emotional feeling. The games that I had problems the games where I felt like an attachment that was a little sad when I put them up for sale were the games where I played them with another person, and maybe I played them for a very long time with other people. But I would never have that experience again. Like, I'm not going to have... So I'll give you an example. There was a game for the PlayStation called...
He just talks the whole time, doesn't he?
I talk a lot of the time. So there was a game for the PlayStation called Tales of Destiny, which was a role-playing game that had an item in it that you could equip on a character to make the game two-player. It was an incredibly obtuse way to make the game multiplayer. Our buddy Jon, who's been on this podcast before, played that game with me for, I would estimate, like 150 hours minimum. That particular game, multiplayer. And I can't tell you a damn thing that happened in that game. I can't tell you a thing about the story of that game. I remember the main character had blonde hair. Don't remember any of the names or anything, but I remember playing that game with Jon. And that's what I remember about that game, and that's what's important. And I'm not going to play that game again with anybody. I'm not going to have 150 hours.
But that's not the reason. I mean, I think there are different points that you're not considering. So we all understand that you are not tied to these games, and we all understand that you're not going to play them again. Here's an example. Okay, and to give people context, I feel like we should tell them how many games we're talking about. We're not talking about 15 games on a bookshelf. We're talking about literally hundreds of video games.
It was about 300.
About 300. So it was impressive. And I don't even like video games, and it was just impressive for me to look at. And it was kind of cool because you could see the progression of how like a game has changed since like the 90s all the way to current. And here's what I really liked about his collection. He had the same thing with DVDs, hundreds of DVDs, hundreds of them. And even though we didn't watch them anymore, our neighborhood friends and their kids would come over and rent movies from us. And I really liked them being able to come and do that. I thought it was a really cool way to share like a collection with other people, like Casey was saying. And I thought the idea of having 300 video games would be so cool to our son. Like, even though he's not going to play them, and even though his dad's not going to play them again, we would be able to have a room in our house, of which we have one for, we have a giant house that with room for 300 video games, and Max could bring his friends over and be like, look at all these video games that my dad has from when he was our age. I thought that would have been really cool. And I also think that this decision he could have sat on for like 6 months. I understand that he's in the purge mode now, because we're moving, and I'm sort of in that mode too. But if he would have just boxed everything up and sat on this idea for a year, and if after a year he still wanted to get rid of them, I could have hopped on board a lot faster. And I basically think my argument is much stronger than yours.
You are a lawyer.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's
lawyer.
impressive. We're not talking about 15 video games here. We're talking about bookshelves and bookshelves and bookshelves of video games, and it's impressive to somebody who is not even a video gamer like me. And it was just a cool collection. And I really thought it was just a fun piece to have in our home.
I think there's a big difference between media like this, like video games and DVDs though, and stuff like books. I just think that I think that they're not comparable.
You're thinking about them as whether you'd play them again. And I know that you won't, but that's not why I think they're cool. I think they're cool because it's a collection of things that meant a lot to you as a child, and it's impressive. Like, it's just an impressive collection. It's 300 video games. That's impressive that you've accumulated that over your life, and I think it's a really cool collection to show.
Well, thank you.
But now we don't have that anymore, so.
I thought it was
Yeah,
impressive.
there's just nothing. Yeah, there's nothing to be proud of anymore, Jon.
Yeah.
Really, do you want to chime in on this, Casey?
Oh, right now? About
Yeah,
the collection?
I figured you would have
No,
to
I mean,
agree
I
with me.
can understand. Like, I've never been a big accumulator of things. And, like, my mom's enormous passion, I'm one of 8 children. So my mom's enormous passion is, like, throwing things out. And she's thrown out things many times that she didn't have to go and buy again. Like, she gets really into it. And then I lived somewhere differently for, like, the last, like, 15 years, you know. So I just never accumulated stuff. I've abandoned entire like suitcases in train stations because I just didn't want to carry them anymore. That's happened twice. So I can understand like the need to like be free and liberated of objects, but I do make exceptions for things that are that have a lot of personal value and that other people could, participate in it, and it becomes a collection. So one thing is just objects that are random and haphazard. Another thing is like, so at what point does it become a collection? I guess is the question.
Yeah, I'm
like, at what point does it stop being things and start being a collection?
Which is why I think you have to give it context. It's not 15 random video games. It's over 300.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the number doesn't
let me
mean
ask you
anything.
this,
I could have
Casey.
300 of the same video game, and then that wouldn't matter. Like the number is
but
not.
I want to know this. But here's my question actually for Casey is like, if John had gotten rid of all but like 10 or 15 games, then would that have been okay, or was it the number that was?
It was the collection. It was the fact that it was impressive. It was, you could see the age of them going from like different, like, I don't know. It was just cool. It was like different decades. It was just a really impressive collection, and I would never use them. He'll probably never use them again. But just because we have a son, and I think it's really cool to be able to show what Dad did when he was young, I think it's just a cool thing. And I mean, what did we get from that? Like probably like $1,600. I don't think it was worth it.
What if I told you that we're still going to be able to show Max those things?
But not in like the physical form, which is just really cool. And if it is what you say it is, and it's going to be so outdated, it's going to be a really cool thing that he's not going to be used to seeing. He's not going to have to ever buy a video game. So like being able to show him all of yours, I think is a really cool historical, like just family thing. And it wasn't worth $1,600 to me. Like it wasn't worth that. I would have saved them.
He's not going to care about them.
I don't know. I just pulled out my old. So my parents just sent me a bunch of stuff home with me because they're trying to purge their house of all my old crap. And in it were like 3 NES boxes. Only one actually contained an NES. I don't know why there were 3 NES boxes. I think it's because I had one growing up, and then my grandma had one in her house, and then I bought one later because one of them didn't work or something. But anyway, but I've got one NES, and like I look at the NES console, and I'm like, this probably doesn't work. I could probably put a game in this, and it won't function properly.
Can we show it? Can I go get it?
Yeah, well, you can.
It's really cool.
It's old, and it's like, well, it's all boxed up now.
Yeah.
But like it's got the old controller, which is not particularly comfortable, and all this other stuff. And so I'm kind of like, okay, let me get rid of this. If I want to play an NES game, I can just buy one of those 3-in-1 consoles that'll play like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and N64 games for like $20, and I can actually functionally play these games. And she didn't really seem that opposed to it. But I pulled out Rob the Robot.
Oh, that's cool.
She thinks it's like the coolest thing ever.
Because for people like Casey who don't have games, what we see is like a cool looking object. Not like a game
it's not functional. Like none of it has to be functional to me. And I understand that keeping the giant consoles. That's kind of silly. But just like the fact that we can store 300 video games in 4 bookshelves in like a guest room, I think is just a cool thing. They're really easy to store.
Because I've seen
aesthetic.
I've seen your house before, and like it is like on one bookcase. So it was the aesthetic to you. Kind of like a trophy case.
It's an impressive collection. It's kind of like just being able to see all of Jonathan's passion like right there, and the fact that Max isn't going to have to buy a video game, and we could show him what different video game cases looked like and the different sizes. And I thought it was a cool thing. And like I said, if we could have gotten like 10 grand from it, I would have thought it was worth it. But $1,600 to get rid of his like a visual representation of his childhood. I get it's not functional. I get it. You're not like attached to them, but I just was. That's why I asked you to do it.
But have you used the Steam library?
I have 300 games in my Steam library, right?
You can't show them.
No, I can show you right now. I can pull it up and I can show you the list. It's 300 games. You know how many I've played? Like 50.
You're not understanding. You're not understanding this.
No, I do understand. And this is the difference. And this is the difference between like contemporary media and old media. Like there's digital media. Eventually there will not be these.
I get that. That's why I wanted to keep them.
Right. And I understand that. I do. I really do. I promise. But like,
she promises.
To me, it's not important to have physical stuff.
Right now, it's not.
It won't be.
You don't know how you're going to feel in 30. What if in 10 years we have 2 more boys and they're obsessed with video games and history behind video games?
And I'm going to show them, and I will show them the internet, because that's got a lot of information. And I'm going to show them the way to look
What's the point of keeping anything then?
Anything digital you shouldn't keep. You shouldn't keep stuff that's
we just got really deep.
No, if stuff is digitally available, you shouldn't keep it.
So books.
If you can get a book digitally, I don't think you should keep a hardcover or a soft cover copy.
Oh, I would disagree.
And that's fine. You don't have to agree with me.
You can give me yours, and then I'll have them.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
I'll take anything that you don't want.
But
and I also think, to get like slightly like saddy about it, like, all my dad's books are on this bookshelf right by us, and it's just nice to look and see what he used to read. Like, I don't know him anymore. Like, it's just cool to see, and it's just like a hard copy. Like, I can go pick up something and like just look at an object. And I think you just made the decision too soon. If you would have felt this way in a year, I would have trusted it more.
I think we're talking about sentimentality here and where we derive it from. So you derive sentimentality from physical objects, and that's fine. I don't derive sentimentality from physical objects.
Obviously not.
I don't, and that should be okay.
But that's a collection.
No, it's not.
No, it's not okay. It's absolutely not okay.
Like, that's okay. And I think that's a collection that I enjoyed too because of its sentimentality. And if it were a small, like 15 random games, I wouldn't have cared. But like I said, it was just a lot of them. It was a cool thing. I just like to put them in my house. I like having a son now that I could like hand those down and just show him. I get that they're not functional. I get it. He can Google whatever when he's like older and see what you used to play, but he won't be able to leaf through them or like bring his friends over and just make fun of your old goofy games. I don't know. I think the decision was made too quickly, and I think you didn't it wasn't like a family decision to you. It was like your own personal decision.
I think you should have stopped him. I'm surprised you didn't.
I mean, I pretty much told him I don't want him to do it, and he did it anyway, so.
Jonathan.
That's what you guys have to look forward to in a long-term relationship. Please don't do this. Okay, I'm going to do it anyway.
That's never happened.
You have to say that part at the end, and it's okay. You can get away with a lot more.
Yeah, just say love you, and then everything's fine. John, try to say that to Casey, and then it'll be fine. Love you.
It wasn't worth $1,600 to me, and we have 5 bedrooms. He would have never had to look at them if he didn't want to.
But John, there was value to him not having I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know. It's very philosophical.
Well,
now.
no, but it is, but that makes it interesting. Right?
No,
that is what makes it interesting.
I agree, Casey.
If I'm like telling you that like I don't value that materialistic hoarding obsession collecting thing that I did when I was a kid, like that should be okay.
But it means more to me than what you got from it. Like what we got from it. Like we got $1,600. It meant more to me than that. It meant more to me than $1,600 cash. Because it was your childhood.
Cash.
I don't know.
Right, if it's cash, we have to.
Yeah, I'm not impressed. Like, I'm just sad about it still, but whatever.
Well, do you have any other thoughts on collecting things and objects and things?
No, I mean in general, like I'm not a huge collector or hoarder or anything like that. But I think it's sentimentality from objects. I think that you have like a book or a story or a game, and there's all that, and then there's this additional layer that has to do with that particular unique object and all the things it's been through. And if you just get it digitally, or if you get rid of it, then you lose that additional layer. So there's an added value, because like if I have a book, it has like notes in a margin that I wrote, or it was a gift from someone, or it traveled with me, and like I could get the same book, or I could just read it on a Kindle, but I would lose that additional, that little like it's cool. There is, and that is cool.
There is something like I'd be okay selling. So I've sold a lot of my Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 games and like PlayStation games and a lot of those, but there is something like Final Fantasy VII. Like if I have Final Fantasy VII and I've got the jewel case, like, and I've got that in my hand, I can picture myself back when I was however old we were, like in my parents' living room with the like little TV in this like side room, and be putting my headphones and plugging them in and playing at 6 a.m. on a Saturday, because that's what I did when I was a kid. And having that little case right next to the PlayStation where you'd like pop it on and, you know, the PlayStation would make all the weird jerky noises like boop, and then like the and like all those weird things. And it's like there. And like Final Fantasy 3, the cartridge for Super Nintendo, like I have one. I don't know if I could get rid of that, but John, you said that a couple of the games were kind of hard for you to part with, right?
Yeah, and the only reason they was because I had memories of playing those games with some of our friends. Like I said, and like I just gave you that example, I didn't remember anything about that game, anything at all. I really didn't. But I remembered playing that game with John upstairs in my house on Florist for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. So like that's what I remember about that.
But now you'll never have any proof that you spent any time with John.
So really this is an advantage is what you're saying.
Really, actually, I'm kind of starting to see your point.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I get those feelings too, that you just described, like when you talk about Final Fantasy VII. You can like, so I just recently started playing through Final Fantasy VII again, however long ago that was, like a year ago. And I got that same feeling playing through it on my TV through my computer without ever putting my PlayStation disc in. I got the same feeling you're talking about.
So like, what's the point of keeping anything then? Why do you have your letter jacket from high school?
Because I just told you.
You could take a picture of it
and
store it on Amazon.
That's totally not the same thing.
It kind of is.
Exactly. Or you can feel it. I'm talking about the same thing, like picking up the video game, opening the jewel case. If I have a picture of your letter jacket, it's the same thing. You're just looking at it online.
And so I just don't have that same feeling as you.
It's maybe jewel cases are just so quotidian to John. He's just lost all.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why he's so opposed to his video game collection.
I wasn't opposed to it. I wasn't opposed to it at all.
Why wouldn't you let me just box it up for 6 months? Why'd you have to get rid of it all right away?
This is the roast of Jonathan Martin, the final episode of Unqualified.
That wasn't what I was expecting out of the episode, but that's all right. That's where it went.
Well, you usually disagreed with your decision going into it. And I think that it's turned into a large, I mean, it's basically been the same discussion and no one's minds have been changed, but I can see both sides of it. Like I said, there's stuff in my living room right now and I'm selling a lot of my old games.
So you can see both sides of it and you have 18,000 more objects than I do.
So and I think it's a testament
to a hardcore collector.
You have more books.
I think it's a testament to like how much I care about you.
I don't even own socks.
It is.
I can understand. I can understand for somebody who's not in the video game sphere or just digital media in general, for somebody who's like not that involved with it, I can understand not understanding my perspective on it. But I am like, I see the trend of where the industry is going for like.
I get that they're not functional to you.
That ultimately that's what it boils down to.
I get that.
And so for me, it's like, why keep them?
And I really feel like it's because I don't have a collection of anything. I don't keep Max's baby clothes. Like, I think it's because I've been with Jonathan for 11 years and he's always had those games. I just, it's just part of like who, I don't know. It's just, they were just what he loved for so long. It makes me sad to see them go.
That's why she dated you. She was attracted to you because of your impressive video game collection, John.
That's
and
true.
now you have nothing.
And now she's married to you, and it's too late.
Yeah.
Boy, how am I ever going to find another woman?
She finds nothing.
Collection is gone.
You have a Steam collection, so you're gonna have to boot up your computer and show her.
Well, the computer's always booted. Nobody shuts down their computer.
Nobody shuts down their computer.
Your mom shuts down her computer every time. Yeah.
My mom shuts down her computer in the middle of the day like 5 times. Anytime she's done with the session, she shuts the whole thing down.
I shut down my computer when I'm done with things. What's wrong with that? That's what solid state drives are for. So you can boot up a computer in like 30 seconds.
Actually, hard electrical cuts to solid state drives are bad for them. They tend to go out faster when you do that.
So just leave my computer on all the time.
So solid state drives in general do not benefit from hard cutting electricity to them.
I don't even know what we're talking about. I'm sorry.
They tend to die faster when they have hard electrical cuts.
Well, this has been.
We have to in this episode.
Cody, even I knew that.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time.
You talk about it all the time. You
All
sit
the
around
time.
talking about cutting electricity to solid state drives.
Yeah, all the
Wow.
time.
Riveting
This is what happens when you
conversation.
sell your video game collection.
You
What
two
Jonathan
didn't
should have done is he should have made me name 10 of his video games, and if I could have named them, I could have kept them.
You wouldn't have.
I know,
you
but it
name
would
10
have
of
been
them?
fair.
I know.
It would have been like a fair challenge, and I would have felt like, okay, I don't deserve these video games because I don't really know what they are.
Well, can you name 10 right now?
Well, I know there's Final Fantasies all the way up through 7.
That doesn't. That's not, and I didn't even own 1, 2, or 3 on disc.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cheating.
Mega Man.
Nope. I didn't have that on
she's,
disc either.
She's looking at my shirt and seeing Mega Man. It's like,
Zelda 1 through 4.
Nope. Those also weren't on discs.
Yeah.
I guess. In conclusion, I guess what I'd want to say to you is, you can trust me to know like what's actually important to me, right? Like, and if I tell you that this video game collection is no longer important to me, maybe it's the fact that we've got a kid now. Like can't
but
you
what you need to
can't you trust me
realize,
with that?
no,
I
but
think if
you-
something's not important to one person, but it's very important to the other, why wouldn't the person who it's very important to get to keep them? Like, if something means nothing to me, I don't care if it's here or gone, but the other person really wants it. Like, why did you get to sell them all when they really meant something to me? I get they mean nothing to you, but if something means nothing to me, I could take it or leave it. But if you really wanted it, I would keep it.
What if I just got you some jewel cases and like wrote on them and like put discs in there? In fact, what if I made and I'm half joking but half serious on this. What if I made the collection again from burned discs and into jewel cases?
That's another fear that I had, that you would regret this decision.
But
and
I don't.
spend more money recreating it.
But I don't. I'm asking you if that would make you feel better to have a
No.
tangible object.
I
Why?
have
Because you
is
didn't buy it with your allowance when you were in high school. Like, I think that's really cool. I love that it's part of your history. And you're saying it doesn't mean anything to you, so you should have deferred to me because it meant something to me.
to be fair, I bought a $300 cloak in high school. I don't know
You still
why.
have it.
Well, yes, but I
Exactly.
would. I probably wouldn't get rid of it. Actually, okay, that's
You're,
fair.
yeah, you're a hardcore collector.
You totally would not get rid of that cloak.
Well, here's what we'll do, Casey. I have a Diablo 2 display case.
Yeah. You can have that.
If you want a piece of video game history,
How
and you
about
want-
every viewer donates one video game to my new collection?
Oh.
you're going to have a collection to surpass Jonathan's, and then you'll be able to get a girlfriend more than him.
Well, you have 5 viewers, so that's like 5 video games, right?
Oh, snap.
Well, this is a record for
Ouch.
the number of viewers that we've had watching us live. I think that the title
I thought
was
the joke was
riveting.
viewer. 1. You have
Ouch! Cut me deep. We've got a multitude of viewers from all continents. All continents.
John moved back from
So I
Russia,
think
so
the mission to MartinCon this next year is everyone has to bring me one video game so I can slowly rebuild Jonathan's
It has to be a classic though. So
here's what I'll
we
do.
rebuild my collection. That's awesome.
I have a copy of International Track and Field for PlayStation. I will bring that to you.
That's the game.
Okay. That sounds
So
good.
there you go. That now you can name one
You're
game.
not gonna play that?
That-
Are you sure?
I
Casey
Don't even-
wants to play it. She's gonna be mad if you get rid of it.
I love track and field,
don't.
especially the field.
No. Oh wow. Especially no. That's
You don't want to
not.
play the field anymore.
It
It's very
is-
symbolic. that
I'm
you
not
picked that
going to
one.
play the
You're
field
done
at all.
playing the field.
I see what you did there, and I raised you 0 because that's going away. It's going to be in Jonathan's new collection. It'll be Casey's new collection, though. Really?
Thank
Right.
you.
Yeah. No, you're welcome.
It's like that Greek.
If Casey
temple
doesn't
that-
mind parting with it, I wouldn't want to do this to another woman. It's very
I,
traumatic.
But this is like I think this is.
I don't have the same. I've only been with him for a year, so it's fine.
It's 1/11th of the amount.
1/11th of the significance.
Yes. I think this has been educational though, in that men and all men, because any one member of any gender can represent that entire gender, as we've learned from society. All men only look at video games functionally, and all women see them as sentimental, regardless of the context or whether they're actually gamers. And I think that's fair to say. I don't think that I've made any generalizations or decoupage, if you will.
No, there's not a single piece of decoupage in what you just said.
One of these days you need to look that word up.
Nope. Not gonna.
I don't want to spoil.
Maybe
it
that's
for
what we
you.
should do on the last episode of Unqualified Gamers is look up the word decoupage. Well, okay. Well, I mean, we've kept our lady friends captive long enough. Do you have any final
friends?
Special lady.
Do you have any final thoughts on collecting things? Because I've also mentioned the reason I wanted to bring my version of Casey onto this episode was because I've mentioned to her my Steam library, and John and I talk. Every gamer talks about this on Steam. You buy games on sale or in bundles, and you'll pay like $6 for a humble bundle and get like 12 games, and you play 3. And then suddenly you don't play the rest. Like John has like 500 games in his library, and he's played.
It's 300. It's about 300.
It's 300, and you've played like 50 or 60.
Probably.
Right. So part of me has always felt bad because like as a kid growing up, we're used to like getting one new game a year, playing it a ton, and then whatever. And the whole like lifestyle kind of growing up over time. Now with new media and digital and indie games and stuff is just like you just get games and it's easy and it's cheap and it's whatever. But there's still this like kind of almost bad feeling about like, oh, I should like, why am I spending $10 on a new game when I've got like 5 right here? And I thought that
it's just to absolve you of guilt.
No, you're the you're the book collector. So I want to know your perspective. Well, you're not a book collector, but like we have an abundance of books that neither of us have read that.
I mean, I go back and forth. Sometimes I feel bad if I buy a bunch of books and then don't read them. And then I tell myself that Umberto Eco has a personal library of 300,000 volumes, which of course no one could ever read.
That is a person.
And anytime anyone comes in and asks him, Umberto Eco, have you read all these books? He's like, you're an idiot. Leave my house. So it's nice to have him.
Not like a very nice guy at all.
He's not really. But he has a lot of books in a big castle in Italy, and that sounds cool. So if you can do the same with Steam, I think that you can.
Well, neither John nor I are nice people either. So
so I'm learning.
We're bees in a pod, really. Well, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thanks for having me. Thank you.
Yes, seriously, thanks for giving us your perspective. It's good.
I would ask for your final thoughts, Casey, but I think we know exactly what you think and exactly which couch John will be sleeping on tonight. Hi-oh.
I've got a multitude of couches that I get to pick.
That's why they moved into a bigger house.
That is.
Right.
So she
several alternate bedrooms.
I do.
So many options.
Send John off to his.
That's what the collection is all about.
I thought this was a super interesting little discussion on game collecting. Bye, Mike Casey. And
bye.
Thank you for
make sure
joining.
To show everybody that she actually still likes me.
It's true, even if it's an act. Did she just say liar in the background?
Yeah, that's exactly what she said.
That's good. That's good. But no, I'm glad that we can have that little talk as I move my webcam back over. It is quite appropriate that our last episode is literally about you selling all of your games. But like I said, I get it. I get it. Like I promise I can see and I am more than willing to admit that there is a difference. There's definitely a difference between having something in your hand and being able to like we'll just use a game for example, having the game in your hand, opening it, putting the disc in, starting it, booting it that way and everything. Like there's a total difference between that and double clicking a game in your Steam library and starting it. And I'm not saying that there is not a difference. What I'm saying is that for me, the difference is not significant enough to hang on to all of that physical stuff. Yeah, I get it.
That's what it is. It's not a significant enough difference to me.
Yeah, I would love to hear.
In fact, in a lot of circumstances, it's actually more cumbersome. And like this may sound like the lamest thing ever, but I guarantee you I am not alone when I say this, in that there have been times where I have maybe wanted to put in another game in my system, but the getting up and putting the disc in the system process is something that I simply didn't want to do.
That is lazy.
I can guarantee you that I'm not the only person, though.
Probably. Well,
yeah.
I'd love to hear listener comments on this. So our email address is unqualifiedpodcast@gmail.com. And I invite you to do that or leave comments on WGMplus.com or on unqualifiedgamers.com. And we will maybe address some of your comments to do a little wrapping up when we start our new podcast in January 2016. Which we'll talk about shortly, but no, I can see both sides. I think that I'm in an advantageous position in terms of getting rid of things because, like, I don't have the collection that you had. It sounds like to your wife, like the fact that you had like an impressive, girthy, thick collection was like something
impressive.
Cool. Yeah. Whereas I just kind of haphazardly have a handful of games here or there, but I think. To me, my attachment becomes stronger then because, like, whereas you had, how many PlayStation games did you have? Like 100?
No, like of the original PlayStation games, I had about 60.
Okay, and you had a bunch of PlayStation 2 games, right?
Yeah, I had about 100 of those. I would say, maybe not that many. Maybe more like 80 of those.
Okay.
The PlayStation games were the ones that were probably, if you want to consider them valuable in like the scheme of being valuable to collectors, the PlayStation games that I had were by far the most valuable. The original PlayStation games.
But what I was gonna say is like I only ever owned like 5 PlayStation 2 games because I never owned a PlayStation 2. I just lived with people that had one. So I only got Final Fantasy 12 in a couple games. In the PlayStation, I only had like 10 or 12 games. So those games are, and then you go back a generation, I only had 10 Super Nintendo games. So you're talking across like 3 generations, I basically had like 20 to 25 games. So they're all very significant to me. What are you holding up? Is that Final Fantasy 12?
Yeah.
Do it again. Hold it up again. I didn't have you on camera.
I kept...
You did keep Final Fantasy 12. Why did you keep Final Fantasy 12 specifically?
I kept Final Fantasy 12 because I can't play that again.
That is true. I saw you tweeting at somebody earlier today.
There's no digital... You know what? When there's a digital release of that, I'll get rid of that.
That's fair. And I have the Final Fantasy 12 Collector's Edition, which I lent to somebody in college, and he lost the instruction booklet, which really makes me mad because it's a collector's edition. Who loses the instruction booklet to the collector's edition? And it wasn't you, so you're off the hook. But man, that was infuriating.
Yeah, it probably wasn't me because I own it. So
probably wasn't you because you own it. So anyway, well, that was a fun little chat that we just had. So are you just gonna work back there while I'm? Oh, it's cool. All right. Well, I'll try and wrap up before you go to sleep. This is the benefit and curse of broadcasting from your bedroom is that.
So let's talk about the lighter side for a second. I did make enough to build a new computer. So
yeah, which you did in like a day.
I did it in 6 hours. And I had some issues. It didn't post right away. I had to do some stuff with the motherboard to make it work. It was super fun. It was like legitimately really fun. I would love if people would approach me and be like, "Hey, I want a new computer. Like, would you build it for me?" I would totally do that because like it's really fun to do. Like legitimately, it's fun to do. So my buddy and I did that and got it totally working. And I updated the minimum amount of stuff I needed to update it. It is ready to go. It's going to go in my basement when we get to the next house, and then my current computer is going to go into my office. So I'm set to go. I am set to go as it comes.
So now you can get Metal Gear Solid 5 and play it.
It's on my list of things I want to get. Absolutely.
It should be because it's amazing.
Yep.
So do that. Well, awesome. Well, congrats on the new computer and on purging your stuff. I am going through a bunch of old Nintendo stuff and trying to figure out what to sell. And there's a lot of stuff I don't want to get rid of because it's not worth anything that I can see, but I feel like it should be. Like, I have a copy of Castlevania 2, Dracula's Curse, which is a terrible game, like pretty objectively, but it's still a Castlevania game. Castlevania 2, with the instructions and the original like Konami inserts, like buy our stuff, and the box is in like mint condition. And yet I look at eBay and they're going for like $4 or $5. So there's not a lot of stuff that, like, some of my stuff is in great shape, right? Like I have Mega Man 5 in the box with instructions, you know, the whole set, great shape. None of this stuff is in shrink or anything like that, but some of it is exceptional condition, but there's no value to it. So, you know, now it's becoming, for me, do I keep it until it has value? Or do I just get rid of it now because it probably won't have value? Like, I don't know. I don't want to be like a hoarder.
I think the reason why those things don't have value, at least from just my small amount of like research when I was doing it, is that they are so easy to emulate that anybody that wants to play them can play them far more easily than buying a copy of the game. PlayStation games are still not emulatable without the original disc. They might be actually now. But they're still relatively collectible. Because like all Nintendo games, all those ROMs have been dumped. You can get any Nintendo game you want to be able to emulate it. I don't know if that's true for PlayStation. It could be, but I don't know if it is. And so there's still some PlayStation games out there that are very valuable. Like the most expensive game that I had was Tales of Destiny 2, and new, you can buy that game for $500. You could buy that game new.
Wow.
Yeah. So used obviously was less than that, but it was it was more than twice as expensive as it was when I bought it to sell it, which is crazy.
Well, the other thing I know for sure I'm not selling is Rob the Robot.
And I wouldn't either. The thing's awesome.
Rob the Robot is awesome. And my there was one other thing. Oh, I found the map to Dragon Warrior 2, which I never owned.
Warrior 2?
Yeah, the map insert. So like with the game, you pull out and you unfold it, and it's the world map of all the dungeons and stuff for Dragon Warrior 2. I don't know why I have it. I never owned Dragon Warrior 2. Probably mildly collectible. That might be like the one thing I can actually get like $5 for or something. I don't know. But because that's like a more valuable game, right? I think.
I think so. I mean, when I sold Dragon Warrior 4 forever ago, it was $60. So I would think Dragon Warrior 2 is still in that pantheon of decently rare collectible Nintendo games.
Well, we're not qualified, so we don't need to know this stuff. But soon we're gonna be not unqualified because we're gonna have a new podcast. So which we'll talk about in a minute. But is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we talk about the podcast in the future and all those things?
No, I guess just to wrap it up, I actually thought I would be sadder than I was. I thought I would be sadder doing this than I ended up being. I actually wasn't that sad at all.
Well, I'm glad you're not sad because I'm feeling generous today. How's that for you?
My wife is sad for the both of us, though. So
I could tell. I could definitely tell. Am I fixing my hair enough here? There we go. All right, we're great. Cool.
Doesn't look any better. It still looks just as bad.
Yeah, pretty much. So, hey, this is our final episode of Unqualified Gamers, as you know it. John and I are going to do a new podcast because the thing is, like, Unqualified Gamers, and thanks for joining us, by the way, if this is your first episode. This is our 127th and final episode. 127 is a prime number. We researched this last week. It was a big deal. So there's that.
The numbers add up to the number 10. That's important.
That is very important.
Or they add up to the number 19. Because it could be 12 plus 7, or they add up to the number 28 because it could be 1 plus 27.
Right.
So there's a multitude of possibilities.
A myriad.
Number 127.
A veritable myriad of possibilities.
A veritable myriad of possibilities.
So there's that. So John and I started this in, what did we figure out, 2011? Is that what we figured out?
January of 2011.
January 2011. So it's been 2011, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, 4 years.
Almost 5.
Well, no, because... So from January to December is a year, right? So then 11, 12, 13, 14. Oh, 15. Oh my God, it's 5 years. You can count. I cannot.
I'm really good at counting.
Okay, great. So yeah, this is 5 years, which, my God, that's really crazy.
It's a long time.
Yes. We started doing it for fun, and then people started listening, and that was encouraging, and we started to get viewers. We started to experiment on YouTube. We tried lots of different things here and there, and we got good feedback. And I guess that's why we kept doing it. I mean, we do it for us and we do it for fun. And at first we did it for our friends, but like we got so much positive feedback from people over the years, which I can literally say years because it has been years now, that really encourages us to keep going and try new things. And hopefully you, if you've been with us for a while, have had fun along the ride with us. Because we really enjoyed it. And before we announce the name of our new podcast and the direction we're going, I do want to thank some people specifically that have been with Unqualified Gamers for a long time that I think really deserve some shout outs. So the first would be actually, I guess our friends actually that put up with us, who already have to deal with our crap and stuff all the time on Facebook, and we always give each other stuff online or whatever. But our friends have actually tuned in, which I think is awesome. So people like Guy and Max and Will and Blake and Ryan, like that have actually and Logan and everybody that have actually like tuned in to listen to us. Especially Max, who would always immediately following an episode go on our Facebook group and comment about something that I said that was wrong. So that was always intensely entertaining for everyone involved.
It was literally every episode.
It was literally every episode.
There was always something you were wrong about.
Once or twice he got you, though. A couple times you were the you were the victim, but mostly me.
Mostly you.
But that was enjoyable. A couple of our friends have even been on the podcast. Guy did an episode on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure that was really good, and arcade boards, which was super interesting. And we had Blake on to talk about we've had him on for various things. I think some Castlevania in the past and things. So thanks to all of them. And Ryan, of course.
Ryan has been on this show.
Ryan has been on the show.
Has done.
He has been on the show. He also the host of Daryl TV on Twitch. So go check out his Twitch channel at Daryl TV. So a couple other thank yous. Scott Miller at Reason for Gaming was one of our contributors on unqualifiedgamers.com who wrote some articles for us, as well as Vintage Gamer Private Lee Brown, who has written for our site and has listened from afar, I believe, while stationed or on deployment. As I mentioned in the word private would imply military. He's serving for us. Thank you for that. Salute to the person sneezing behind me. So that's really cool to know that we're indirectly supporting our troops, kind of best we can, I guess. But hopefully, yeah, as long as we're being entertaining, that's good. And a couple other thank yous. Jamie Butterworth, we've had on the podcast. He reviewed Wonderful 101 on the Wii U for us. Jamie was our first fan. And by fan, I mean somebody that told us, hey, I found your podcast and I like it and you guys are good, that we didn't know. We'd never met this dude. And since that time, Jamie has interacted with us a ton on Twitter and on YouTube and a lot of Google Plus stuff. He's launched his own podcast and he's really active, but his support's always been a lot. And we haven't always seen eye to eye on what games we like or to what level, but it meant a lot to us to get that interaction. Another big fan I want to thank, there's only two more, I promise. Another big fan I want to thank is Christopher Long, who when he first found our podcast, his post on Google Plus was, I would like to thank whoever runs Unqualified Gamers. Cody, is that you? Because you liked what I posted, spammed me with +1s, and introduced me to my favorite podcast of all time. And then he goes on to say that he's listened to the majority of our podcast in the last 2 weeks. And like I said, John and I are just two dudes just sitting around talking about games that we like, and to get a comment like that's like, hey, you guys are entertaining me and keep it up. That's so awesome. Christopher also ended up writing for our website and again, and was involved in some robotics competitions. He was in high school when he started listening to the podcast. I don't even know how old he is now, but he was in these robotics competitions. So he is going to probably help you build that giant robot in Minnesota, John, to destroy Minnesota with all the.
I mean, that's why I got rid of my video games.
Yeah, basically. And less
because when the end times come and the robot rains destruction across the entire world, I'm not going to need my video games, and Chris is going to help us do that.
That's true. And one other fan I want to thank is Ryan Dombrowski. He's also been on this podcast. He co-hosted one and talked about various things. Were you on that one too, or was it just
Yeah,
me?
he's no, Ryan's a great guy.
Dude, he used to listen to our old, he discovered us around our 50th episode or 60th maybe, and I hadn't, basically, the long story short, we used to swear in our old episodes, and I didn't always catch all the bleeps. He liked our podcast so much, he listened to all of the first every episode actually, and sent me emails telling me where the bleeps were and where I should bleep out our swears so I could clean it up for iTunes.
And he gave you timestamps, right?
He gave me timestamps. That is so hardcore dedicated. It's amazing. He offered to buy me a webcam at one point after I had continued whining about mine on the podcast.
It was so bad.
Nicest dude ever. That is so cool. We should have had him on from our Broforce podcast with Rush and Jon. I just was rereading through some old emails, and he was actually playing through that several months ago. So that would have been fun, but we'll have to get him on again in the future. I haven't heard from him super recently, but Google Plus we haven't been as focused on that lately, so I'm not as good with messages as I used to be. But anyway, all those people, and there are so many more. There's a lot of you on there are listeners that we have on Twitter that will tweet at me and Jon about some things, and some people in the Gamers at Large network that I know listen to us, and we've been part of that on and off. So there has just I don't know, I just wanted to take a minute and be actually thank you for,
and also thanks to the Gonna Geek Network, right? Just as a network for also hosting our podcast, for helping us. I mean, they don't host the podcast, but they, we joined on with them as their video game specialty podcast. That was kind of where it started, but that network has grown huge since we originally started. There were 3 or 4 podcasts when we first started with Gonna Geek?
Maybe a couple more than that, but it has grown quite a bit. Yeah.
A lot.
Game of Thrones podcast and lots of Marvel Comics podcasts, and Stargate Pioneer, who is an expert on all things Audio-Technica pretty much.
And we've had a ton of support from them anytime we've ever had any questions, because they do a lot more research into the art of podcasting than you and I have ever done. So if we've ever needed help with any of that stuff, they've been awesome to ask questions to and help us with that.
Yeah. Steven, the guy that owns the network, checks in with me all the time about stuff. We broadcast, we brainstorm lots of things together. It's they've been a really cool group of people. And I've been on All Things Good and Nerdy a couple times. I've been on the Gonna Geek podcast. I think we still need to get you on the GonnaGeek.com podcast.
Yeah, I haven't been on the official podcast yet.
Yeah, but we'll get you there. So yeah, the Gonna Geek Network has been really awesome. And of course, everybody at WGM Plus that was involved in getting us syndicated there, because that was a huge leap for us, really, to get onto a major market podcast network, in addition to the Gonna Geek Network, which, again, I interact with those guys every day pretty much now. It's really strange actually to think about. I don't really think about it a lot, but it's been really great. So yeah, if you've listened to any of our episodes, or even if this is your first one, just thanks for being cool and being positive. Our iTunes reviews are all 5 stars. No one ever bashes us. We haven't had a lot of run-ins with trolls. Nobody really gives us crap. We've overall had a pretty positive experience, I think, for being a growing podcast. What do you think?
Also, for just something on the internet.
Yeah,
it's a very positive experience for anything that is put up on the internet, I would say. It's been great. It's been really awesome. It's been a really fun ride.
Yeah, definitely. So with that, that brings us to the next chapter. So Jon and I just don't play enough new games to warrant a video game podcast. I'm 130 hours into Metal Gear Solid 5. I'm pretty sure it's the only game I've played since October.
Yeah, you've been playing it for months. And coming back to the podcast, it's, every week after week, which we are still striving to do this on a weekly basis. It's totally fine that you talk about Metal Gear Solid 5 every week. There's nothing wrong with that. But just we framed ourselves initially as a video game podcast, one where people came to for it didn't need to be new video game news or new video game takes, but it was very video game focused, and there just wasn't. We ended up we don't have content. We just don't have enough content anymore.
Yeah, I think I reached a breaking point after like the 10th episode in a row where I talked about Hearthstone. I mean, it was bad enough when I talked about it. Like, we had a joke way back when we were Unqualified, a video game podcast. We had a running joke that I talked about Final Fantasy 13 2 every episode.
Well, because you did, though. You
But
really
it wasn't even nearly as bad as Hearthstone. Like, Hearthstone was bad. The last like 2 to 3 months, I feel like every second or third episode I've talked about it for like 20 minutes, and it's like, okay, we get it. Like, I didn't like talking about it, but there was just nothing else to even. I mean, I did because I did, but you know what I'm saying. So yeah, we're just going to go into more the direction of a lifestyle podcast that will be launching in January 2016. In the meantime, keep following us on WGN Plus. I will be posting some kind of classic episodes with some really current sounding video game reviews, and those should be really cool, right? So keep an eye on us on WGN Plus, and please keep an eye on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/unqualifiedpodcast. I'm going to be doing some Let's Plays over the next month. It's just some short Let's Play videos of indie games with some additional color commentary from my girlfriend that I think will be actually really entertaining. So I'm going to get back in the Let's Play realm a little bit, and you can find that there. So, you know, keep an eye on us there. I'll try to keep our iTunes feed kind of up to date. There will be content coming. I won't leave you hanging all December, but John and I won't be doing any new episodes. He's moving into a house, and Christmas is happening, so he's a bit busy. I'm a bit busy too, but like I have ways of doing things. And the name, this brings us to the name of our new venture, which was taken. So I should tell you the backstory.
Because of course it was, because we thought, oh, this name is awesome. Is it taken? And of course, because we thought it was awesome, guess what? Somebody else also thought it was awesome.
Every name on the internet's taken, basically.
Yeah.
John and I, we seriously, for weeks, would just G-chat about what names we liked. And there was one that we agreed on. Like, literally one that we were like, this is perfect. This is perfect. So it's a podcast it's actually the name of a podcast that's already being done by two guys in Australia. So I go to check it out, and I'm like, all right, let's see what these guys are all about, right? Because there's a lot of abandoned projects on the internet. A significant percent of podcasts don't survive past the 10th or 20th episode. There's a lot that just burn out. So, you know, for all I knew, this Google search result was some 2-year-old podcast that never, whatever. So I go, and they had released bi-weekly, like clockwork, every 2 weeks in 2015. And I'm like, all right, these guys are serious. Cool. Let's, you know, and I get to the last episode, and it was like, this is our final episode. I'm like, wait, you've got to be kidding me. And it had been posted like that day or something, or that week, like literally. So I go on, and I'm like, all right, if these guys are, so I listened. I was like, I've got to listen to see. And so they talk in the podcast a bit. They're like, well, we might use the name in the future, but we'll see. But anyway, one of us is having a baby, so we're going to be taking a break for a while, which is funny because a year before this, John went through the same thing. He needed to miss some weeks because he had a baby. So I emailed the guys, and I'm just like, hey, listen, this is really random, but we really like this name. Can we use it? They want to keep using it for some projects next year, but long story short, they're going to let us use it as well. So now there's going to be a US and an Australian version of the same podcast. We're hoping to do some collaborations with them in 2016 once they're all done with paternity leaves and things like that. They're the nicest, at least the one I've been corresponding with is the nicest guy ever. All his emails are super cool and friendly, and they are just two awesome dudes that we'll be chatting with. And we're allowed to use the name of their podcast, which, John, Nathan, do you want to divulge?
Sure. So we are going to be, our new podcast is going to be called Game Life Balance US. So, and again, that is because we are the US version. They are going to be just Game Life Balance, right?
I think they were talking about becoming Game Life Balance AUS or Australia. I don't know exactly how they'll do the branding, but we'll be Game Life Balance US.
Right. And so we are currently working on, at least when I say we, I mean Cody is currently working on migrating everything from Unqualified Gamers over to GameLifeBalanceUS.com. Is that right?
Well, let's not give out the URL because the
That could
website
change.
the website is no the actually the website is it's registered. I have an outline and all the content is migrated. Like you can go there right now and listen to every episode of Unqualified Gamers. It's all done. All I'm doing is updating the layout, and I'm working with a friend on a logo. So once I have the new logo and I just have some of the stuff on the website set, then it'll be good to go. But I don't want to direct people there yet because the website is like a total disaster right
It's
now.
rough. Okay.
It's a very rough draft,
Yeah.
but everything's migrated. So in January, as of our first episode of Game Life Balance US, I will be able to say, here's our website, go here for our content, and it's going to look all shiny. You'll be able to find every episode of Unqualified Gamers, and it should be really seamless and smooth. Like 90% of the work is done.
Game Life Balance is going to be more like there's a good chance that we're not going to talk about video games in some of our episodes there. Because we just don't, like we just said, we don't play as many anymore. The idea behind Game Life Balance is we are finding a way to balance our love of video games as well as living our real lives. And so there are going to be probably some more, like Cody had said, lifestyle type discussions that come up on the podcast. I have a feeling there's probably going to be some articles we read and discuss, and that may be the focus of some episodes. But I think it's going to really help expand our ability to deliver new content, and not try to kind of scrape the bottom of the barrel as much.
Yeah, although I will say, and this is something we probably should have talked about beforehand, but we don't plan, so why would we have? I would like to do a top games of 2015 with you as a final. So should that be our first episode?
Sure, I don't see why not.
Or we could do like an Unqualified Gamers special. I don't know.
I think I might have played 5 games this year. I'll have to go back and check. I definitely was writing them down, so maybe I did. I don't actually know.
So look forward to that. The first episode of Game Life Balance US will be us talking about our top games of 2015, as well as talking about how our holidays went. And I think that this type of podcast makes a lot of sense. I'm actually surprised that hasn't been done before, because we're the first generation that has grown up with gaming and had to deal with now being adults. Pretty much. Because I mean, we were born when like the Nintendo Entertainment System came out the year we were born.
Yeah, what the hell am I going to do when I want to play Dragon Age Inquisition and it's like a 90-hour game and I have a kid and a wife and probably in the future more kids? Like how the hell am I going to find the time to play that game? It's going to take me a year to play that game.
Yeah, no, I don't have any kids, and I'm still, I mean, I have put a ridiculous amount of time into Metal Gear Solid 5, but like, if I had kids, forget about it. I don't know.
That's in a bunch of months. That's in like a bunch of months worth of time.
And not just that, but even working. Like there's a popular internet meme that's got the girl like with her hand on her face. That's like, oh no. And it's like, I have money to play video games. I don't have time to play video games because I work to make money or something along those lines. And it's like I think every generation has to deal with this in some way. Like you can't just do what you did when you were a kid when you're older all the time. But there is it's tricky to strike a balance. And how do you play these big, long, epic games? How am I supposed to justify a Final Fantasy 14 subscription if I can only play it for 6 hours a month? But then I've got the money to do it, so why not? And it's just it's tricky. So we're going to try to find that balance and then talk about lifestyle stuff too. And people generally seem to enjoy the way that our dynamic is with each other. With Jon,
they certainly like me.
People like that we hate each other. So. And for some reason, strangely, continue to do this podcast. So, yeah, because one of our other concepts for a podcast was something along the lines of two best friends growing up who can't agree about anything, which is also kind of true.
I mean, that's kind of what this next podcast is probably going to be about.
Yeah, probably. So I don't know. And we'll have more guests too. I'd like to invite more people in to have more conversations about things that are relevant to us. This could mean people in the gaming industry, or this could mean somebody totally uninvolved with gaming. But I'm excited about Game Life Balance US, and we will at some point do some sort of collaboration with our Australian friends. So actually during December, if you're bored and you want a cool podcast to listen to, go listen to Game Life Balance. Just Google it. Hopefully they're still the top result, because like I said, our website is not ready for people to see. I'm sure like everyone's Googling it right now. Like, oh, look at this new site. It looks terrible. Oh, the old logo is like, it's easy to find, but I'll make it better soon. So there's that. Are you going to add anything else to this? Or
Thanks a lot.
You good? Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot to everybody that supported us. It's been really fun.
Yeah, it has been super fun. So we will see you in 2016. I'll try to talk to you before then, but for all of us,
Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays. Have a great holiday, and don't buy Starbucks because their
cups are just red. Like that's all they are. They're just red.
Christmas.
It's not Christmas at all.
For every red cup they sell, Santa Claus dies.
I thought Santa got his wings.